The 19th century British Empire relied on a specific narrative to maintain its grip on India. By depicting the subcontinent as an inherently backward land of magic and superstition, imperial historians provided the moral cover for a system where colonial administrators lived in luxury while extracting the nation's wealth. The human cost of this system was visible in the recurring famines that devastated the population. Under colonial economic mandates, millions of Indians were pushed into chronic poverty and starvation, exposing the hollow nature of this civilizing mission. Internal fractures worsened the crisis. Society was deeply divided by the hierarchies of caste and untouchability, while religious life had largely narrowed into a series of rigid mechanical rituals and massive public spectacles that offered little relief to the suffering of the masses. Trapped between external exploitation and internal social decay, India was paralyzed. Breaking this cycle required a radical reformer, a leader capable of challenging the intellectual foundations of both British superiority and Indian social rigidity. In 1893, at the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago, Swami Vivekananda upended the global perception of the Indian intellectual. He arrived not as a passive subject of the empire, but as a disruptor who challenged the assumptions of his audience. He was a vocal critic of the orthodox religious leaders in India. He famously declared that his religion did not reside in cooking pots or in the exclusionary rules of untouchability, arguing instead that true spiritual practice was found in service of humanity. He was equally blunt with Western audiences. He told the delegates that sending Christian missionaries to preach to a starving nation was a cruel waste of effort, noting that the immediate need of the people was bread, not proselytizing. Vivekananda concluded that both traditional rituals and Western piety had failed to address India's decline. The society required a total philosophical transition to move forward. He built this transition on the 8th century philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. Established by the scholar Shankaracharya, this system posits that only a single supreme consciousness, Brahman, is real, while the fragmented physical world we perceive is a secondary illusion known as Maya. Vivekananda's Neo-Vedanta applied this logic to modern social inequality. He argued that if the exact same universal consciousness exists within every person, then divisions based on race, gender, or caste are both spiritually and logically false. This led to his most direct doctrine, Daridra Narayan. He insisted that the divine is found most clearly in the poor and the oppressed, making their service the highest form of worship. This shifted the focus of Indian spirituality. Rather than seeking isolation for personal enlightenment, the goal was redirected toward the material and social upliftment of the broader population. Vivekananda viewed the world as two broken halves. He saw Western materialism as a master of industrial production and wealth, yet one that suffered from a moral void and unchecked greed. Conversely, he saw the East as possessing deep ethical frameworks and spiritual traditions, yet paralyzed by physical destitution and a lack of technological progress. His solution was a global exchange. The West would share its technological and economic expertise, while the East would provide the ethical and spiritual grounding necessary to humanize industrial growth. This framework repositioned India as an essential partner in global progress, offering the philosophical equilibrium required to stabilize the forces of industrial capitalism. His political views were equally forward-looking. In his writing, including the work I Am a Socialist, he analyzed the structural power dynamics of the modern world, looking beyond theology to the mechanics of governance. He described a historical cycle of power, shifting from priests to warriors, and then to the merchant class. He predicted that this cycle would inevitably culminate in the rise of the working class, or the Shudras, as the primary holders of social authority. To prepare for this future, he advocated for a unified Indian identity. He believed a strong society required the integration of its various cultures, suggesting that the nation needed the organizational strength he associated with Islamic structures, paired with the philosophical depth of Hindu thought. By merging class theory with an insistence on communal integration, Vivekananda provided a framework for an egalitarian society that preceded the organized political movements of the 20th century. This philosophical shift was rooted in the teachings of his guru, Ramakrishna Paramahansa. Ramakrishna was a traditional priest whose spiritual life was defined by an intense personal devotion to the divine. Much of this devotion took place at the Dakshineswar Kali temple, where Ramakrishna focused his worship on the stone idols of the temple sanctuary. Vivekananda translated this spiritual intensity into the material service of the sick and the destitute. He took the reverence his teacher felt for the temple idol and applied it directly to the living human beings suffering in the streets. In 1897, he institutionalized this vital service by founding the Ramakrishna Mission. Its primary activities were not religious conversion, but disaster relief, the management of hospitals, and the establishment of schools for the poor. The mission turned the doctrine of Daridra Narayan into a functioning organization, proving that Vivekananda's ideas were intended for immediate application to the nation's social crises. As modern society continues to grapple with extreme wealth inequality and social division, Vivekananda's Neo-Vedanta remains relevant. It serves as a reminder that as long as suffering exists, the highest expression of any philosophy is found in human service. If you found this exploration of Indian history valuable, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the thinkers who shaped the modern world.